You've failed the same habit 17 times. Different year, same collapse. Week 3 arrives and you're done. You tell yourself it's a willpower problem. You're wrong. Willpower is a lie sold to you by people who don't understand how your brain actually works. There's a Japanese monk system from 1200 AD that produces discipline so consistent, it terrifies people who witness it. They call it Gyoji, the practice that perpetuates itself. And once you understand what's really breaking your habits, you'll never blame willpower again. But here's what nobody tells you. This system requires you to kill a part of yourself you've been protecting your entire life. Let me show you what's actually happening in your brain right now. Every morning you wake up, you have approximately 0.2 seconds before your primitive brain categorizes the day's commitments into 2 boxes. Reversible or irreversible? Reversible commitments trigger negotiation. Should I? Can I skip? What if I do it later? Irreversible commitments simply happen. No negotiation. Just execution. Stanford researchers studying habit formation discovered something that changes everything. When you make a private promise to yourself, your prefrontal cortex treats it as a suggestion, a reversible commitment. But when you make that same promise public, your amygdala interprets failure as a survival threat. Because in our evolutionary past, losing status in the tribe meant death. Your brain still operates on that ancient wiring. Here's what this means for you. That gym membership you bought in January? Private commitment. Reversible. Your brain knows nobody's watching. That meditation app you downloaded? Private. Your promise to read 30 minutes daily? Private. All reversible. All negotiable. All destined to collapse by week 3 because your primitive brain sees 0 survival consequences for quitting. You're fighting a war you don't even know you're in. Every single morning, your brain runs a cost-benefit analysis in 0.2 seconds. Effort versus consequence. And if the consequence of failure is just disappointing yourself, effort loses every time. You think you lack discipline. What you actually lack is a system that makes your brain believe failure is unacceptable. Let me tell you about Raphael, software engineer. Smart guy. Successful career. Could not maintain a single habit past 2 weeks. Gym? Quit after 2 months. Meditation? 1 week maximum. Reading? 3 pages then forgotten. The pattern was identical every time. Monday, total motivation. Wednesday, first mental negotiation. Friday, complete surrender. Sunday, promises about next week. He tried everything. Habit tracking apps. Rewards. Accountability partners. Nothing worked because he was fighting something invisible, the architecture of his own brain, until he discovered why Zen monks meditate every single day at 3:30 a.m. without missing once since the year 1200. And no, it's not willpower. It's something far more powerful and far more frightening. In Zen temples across Japan, there's a practice that seems simple but changes everything. Gyoji! Continuous practice without gaps. Without gaps. Let that sink in. Since 1200 AD, every single morning at 3:30 a.m., a bell rings at Eiheiji Temple. And since 1200 AD, every single morning, monks wake up. Not 3:25. Not 3:35. Exactly 3:30. You know what never happens in that temple? No monk lies in bed thinking, today I'll skip. The question simply doesn't exist in their minds. Why? Because they understand something you're about to learn. When a monk takes his vows in front of the entire monastic community, he's not making a promise. He's changing his identity. He's not promising to try to meditate. He's declaring himself a meditator. The community witnesses it. The identity shifts. The negotiation ends. A Harvard neuroscientist who studied habit formation for 15 years discovered something revolutionary. When you make a behavior public and attach it to your identity, your brain's threat detection system activates differently. Private failure disappoints you. Public failure threatens your social survival. Your amygdala can't tell the difference between failing publicly at a habit and being cast out of your tribe to die alone. Both trigger the same neural alarm. This is why public declarations work when private promises fail. It's not about accountability. It's about hijacking your brain's most primitive survival mechanism. Fear of social death. Raphael stopped making private promises. He wrote on paper, "I am a person who meditates 20 minutes every day at 5 a.m. for 90 consecutive days." He signed it. He posted it on social media. He told everyone he knew. His girlfriend said, "You're being too dramatic." His coworker said, "Man, you're trying too hard." Perfect. Every person who knew became fuel. Every morning he wanted to quit. He thought about looking everyone in the face and admitting he was just another person who couldn't deliver. Day 3 brought the first real test. Alarm at 5 a.m. Immediately his mind began its usual routine. You're exhausted. This isn't healthy. One day won't make a difference. But something fundamental had changed. The thought of posting online that he'd quit after 3 days was unbearable. Having to admit to his girlfriend he'd given up again. The public declaration had made quitting more painful than continuing. But here's where it gets complicated. Even with all that social pressure, Raphael was still fighting a war every single morning. His body didn't care about his reputation. It wanted sleep. The public declaration ended the mental negotiation about whether to practice. But he was still burning willpower, deciding when to practice. This is the trap most people fall into. They solve the commitment problem, but leave the scheduling problem unsolved. And that gap is where discipline dies. Because every day you waste mental energy on the same stupid question. When will I do this? Now or after breakfast? Morning or night? This decision burns glucose in your prefrontal cortex that should be used for actual practice. You're wasting fuel deciding when to drive instead of actually driving. Raphael chose 5 a.m., not because he loved mornings or wanted to watch the sunrise. He chose 5 a.m. because the world was asleep. No messages, no emails, no distractions, no excuses. The time wasn't about optimization. It was about elimination. Eliminating every possible reason to negotiate doing it later. The first week was hell. His body fought every morning. That's normal. Your body is a pattern-running machine, and you're forcing it to build a new pattern. It resists. Second week, something changed. He started waking up 2 minutes before his alarm. His body had begun preparing for what now awaited it. Day 14. The alarm rang and his feet touched the floor before his conscious mind engaged. No thought. No decision. Just movement. Here's what most people don't understand about fixed schedules. It's not about finding the perfect time. It's about removing time as a variable. When you practice at different times every day, you're asking your brain to make a new decision every single time. When the schedule is fixed, your brain can't argue with a constant. A University of Pennsylvania study on automaticity found that behaviors performed at the same time daily become automatic 43% faster than behaviors performed at varying times. Your basal ganglia, the part of your brain that handles automatic behaviors, needs temporal consistency to encode the pattern. Variable timing keeps the behavior in your prefrontal cortex, where it requires willpower. Fixed timing moves it to your basal ganglia, where it becomes automatic. But Raphael discovered a new problem. His schedule was fixed, but he kept changing what he did during that time. Some mornings meditation felt right. Other days he read, sometimes push-ups. His brain had found a new negotiation point. Instead of arguing about when, it started arguing about what. 20 minutes at 5 a.m. became reliable, but the practice itself was chaos. The fixed schedule solved half the equation, but his mind was still finding loopholes to negotiate. He'd eliminated the when but not the what. And this is where the Zen teaching on form becomes controversial, because it requires you to do exactly the same thing every single day until your mind completely surrenders. You think variety keeps things interesting? But variety is actually where consistency dies. Every time you change what you're doing, your brain has to make micro decisions. Should I do push-ups or burpees today? Which book should I read? How long should I meditate? Every small decision is a crack where your old patterns leak back in. Raphael completely locked everything down. 20 push-ups, 10 minutes meditation, 10 minutes reading. Same order, same timer, same sequence. His personal Ango period. 90 days of identical practice. His friends called him robotic. His girlfriend said he was getting annoying. They didn't understand that annoying was exactly the point. Third week, his mind went to war. Every morning it screamed for variety. This is stupid. You're not a robot. Mix things up or you'll burn out. Fourth week, something broke. Not his discipline, but his resistance. The voice of negotiation grew quieter. By week 6, he was halfway through his push-ups before he even realized he'd started. The practice was taking care of itself. This is what people don't understand about consistency. It's not about willpower lasting forever. It's about repetition until willpower is no longer needed. Your body learns the sequence like a dancer learns choreography. An MIT researcher who studied behavioral automatization for 12 years explains it perfectly. When you repeat an action in the same context for approximately 66 days, the basal ganglia of your brain take over. The behavior becomes automatic. You're no longer deciding to do it. You're simply doing it. Day 35. Raphael caught the flu. Day 40, he was traveling for work. This is where the old pattern kicks in. Sick day equals rest day. Travel equals exception. This is where you gave up before, where everyone gives up. Because perfect practice requires perfect conditions, and perfect conditions do not exist. But the Zen monk Dogen, who founded the Gyoji system, understood something about gaps that changes everything. He wrote that practice must continue without even a moment of gap, because in that gap all your old patterns return. What saved Raphael when everything went wrong was understanding that practice doesn't require perfection. It requires continuity. The all-or-nothing lie has killed more consistency than laziness ever could. You tell yourself, if I can't do the full 20 minutes, why do anything? If I can't do perfect push-ups, I'll wait until tomorrow. This thinking creates gaps. And gaps are where your old self crawls back in. Look at any elite athlete and you'll see something people misinterpret. They have rest days, but those rest days are still practice. They're intentional, strategic, planned. Never because they feel lazy. Never because they don't want to train. A rest day allows them to train harder tomorrow. This is still movement toward the goal. But when you skip because you're tired, that's not rest. It's retreat. A river never stops flowing. During a drought, it may be a trickle, but it never stops. The moment it stops, it's no longer a river. It's a memory of where water used to be. Your practice is the same. The moment you create a gap, you're no longer practicing. You're someone who used to practice. Travel day arrived on day 40. Airport at 4 a.m. Meetings all day. No gym at the hotel. Raphael did push-ups in the airport bathroom. People looked at him like he'd lost his mind. Great! He meditated in the Uber. He read on the plane. Nothing was perfect. Everything maintained momentum. This is Gyoji. Practice continuing itself regardless of conditions. That's when people started to notice. Coworkers said he seemed different. Friends said he was becoming obsessive. Someone actually said his discipline wasn't healthy. That normal people don't act like that. When you hear these words, you know you're on the right track. Normal people get normal results. You're not trying to be normal. You're trying to be unbreakable. But here's what no one prepares you for. The unexpected obstacles you never saw coming. The things you can't plan for because you don't know they exist yet. Your child gets sick. Your car breaks down on the way to the gym. Your boss keeps you late. These are consistency killers because you haven't pre-decided how to handle them. Every time an unexpected obstacle appears, you have to make a decision under stress. And that decision in that moment of chaos is where you'll choose the path of least resistance every time. The obstacle wins because you're fighting a battle you didn't prepare for. Zen monasteries have operated for centuries without missing a single day of practice. Earthquakes, wars, famines. The practice continues. How? They don't make decisions when obstacles arise. The answer already exists. When the meditation hall floods, they go to the dining hall. When the dining hall catches fire, they sit in the courtyard. There's no meeting, no discussion, no negotiation. The bell rings. The response is automatic. Raphael wrote down every obstacle that had ever broken his consistency and pre-solved each one. Raining? Push-ups in the garage. Guests staying over? Silent workout in the bathroom. Hangover which shouldn't happen, but if it does? 2 push-ups, 1-minute meditation, 1-page reading. Each scenario had its predetermined response. When X happens, I do Y. No thinking. No negotiating. Just execution. The power of this isn't just maintaining the sequence. It's that you stop wasting mental energy on decisions. Your brain knows that no matter what happens tomorrow, the practice continues. This certainty changes your entire nervous system. A Yale behavioral psychologist who studied decision-making for 20 years found that when you pre-decide your actions, you remove decision fatigue from the critical moment. Your prefrontal cortex responsible for willpower remains intact to execute rather than decide. The decision was already made yesterday. Today you just follow the protocol. Day 70, Raphael's practice had become completely automatic. He would sometimes wake up not even remembering doing the push-ups. His body simply moved through the sequence like a programmed machine. His girlfriend's mother visited for a week. He did push-ups in the bathroom at 5 a.m. The practice continued because the answers were already written. Day 90, he completed his personal ango. 3 months of uninterrupted practice, but something deeper had happened. He was no longer the same person. Friends literally told him, "Your consistency is scary." His response was perfect. Good, because when your discipline makes others uncomfortable, you're finally operating at the right level. Your existence proves that everything they say is impossible is actually just uncomfortable. That's why they'll call you obsessive. That's why they'll say you need balance. They need you to slow down so they can feel better about standing still, but you're not doing it for them. You're doing it because you've discovered the secret. Consistency isn't about doing something every day. It's about becoming someone who can't do it any other way. When you implement the Gyoji system, public declaration that makes failure socially lethal, fixed schedule that eliminates temporal negotiation, identical practice that removes decision fatigue, and pre-solved obstacles that eliminate crisis decisions, you're not just creating habits. You're reshaping your identity. You stop being someone who tries and become someone who simply is. Let me break down the 3 defenses against habit failure that actually work. Defense 1, public declaration with identity attachment. Write down, "I am a person who does X at Y time for Z days." Sign it, post it, tell everyone. Make the social cost of failure higher than the physical cost of continuing. Your primitive brain will do the rest. Limitation only works if you actually care about the opinions of the people you told. Choose your witnesses carefully. Defense 2, fixed time plus fixed form. Same time every day. Same practice every time. Remove all variables. Your basal ganglia need consistency to automate. Variable practice keeps behavior in your prefrontal cortex burning willpower. Fixed practice moves it to automatic systems. Limitation: the first 30 days will feel robotic and boring. That discomfort is the price of automation. Defense 3, pre-solved obstacles. Right now, list every reason you've ever quit a habit. Travel, sickness, guests, work crisis. For each obstacle, write your minimum viable practice. If X happens, I do Y. The answer exists before the problem arrives. When chaos hits, you don't decide, you execute. Limitation: you can't pre-solve obstacles you've never encountered. Build this list over time as new obstacles appear. The system gets stronger with every challenge you document and solve. Here's what nobody tells you about this level of discipline. It changes how people see you. They'll call it obsessive. They'll say it's not healthy. They'll tell you that you need balance. What they're really saying is your consistency makes them uncomfortable because it proves their excuses are just excuses. When you show up every single day, no matter what, you become living evidence that the things they say are impossible are just things they're unwilling to do. Your discipline isn't a judgment of them, but they'll feel judged anyway. That's not your problem. That's their confrontation with their own inconsistency. The Gyoji system won't make you a better person. It'll make you a different person. Someone others will look at and think that's not normal. And when you hear those words, you'll know you finally arrived. Because normal people get normal results. And you're not trying to be normal anymore. You're trying to be unbreakable. The question that remains is, are you ready for this level of transformation? Because it's not about discipline. It's about death and rebirth. The death of your inconsistent self. The birth of your unbreakable self. Here's the final thing Raphael discovered on day 90. The system had worked so well that stopping felt impossible. Not because he was forcing himself to continue, but because continuing had become easier than stopping. His body expected the 5 a.m. alarm. His mind knew the sequence. His identity was now built around being someone who shows up. The practice was perpetuating itself exactly as the monks designed 800 years ago. He wasn't doing Gyoji anymore. Gyoji was doing him. And that's when he understood the most disturbing truth of all. The system you're using right now, the one that keeps you failing by week 3, it's also perpetuating itself. Your pattern of starting strong and quitting early has become automatic. You've practiced inconsistency so many times your brain has automated failure. You're not bad at discipline. You're extremely disciplined at being inconsistent. The Gyoji system doesn't teach you new discipline. It redirects the discipline you already have. You've been training your brain for years. You've just been training it in the wrong direction. Every time you quit, you got better at quitting. Every time you negotiated, you got better at negotiating. Your brain automated that pattern. Now you need to automate a different one. The monks knew this 800 years ago. That's why they never allow gaps. Because in that gap, your old automation kicks back in. One missed day isn't a rest day. It's practice at being inconsistent, and your brain learns fast. So here's what you do right now. Pick one practice, not 5. 1. Something small enough that you can't fail but significant enough that it matters. Write down your public declaration with your identity attached. Decide your fixed time. Lock in your fixed form. Pre-solved your 3 most likely obstacles. Then start tomorrow. Not Monday, tomorrow. And here's the part that will separate you from everyone else. When day 3 comes and your mind screams to stop, you're going to remember this moment right now. You're going to remember that what you think is a willpower problem is actually an automation problem. And you're going to show up anyway, not because you feel motivated, but because you decided the person you're becoming shows up regardless of how they feel. That's Gyoji. That's the practice that perpetuates itself. That's the system that makes people look at you and think that's not normal. And you'll smile because you know normal people don't get the results you're about to get. The consistency that scares others is the only consistency worth having.